Hey there, welcome to episode 102 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. We're recording this late on Friday. It's 9:20 p.m., Friday, February 7, 2025. Today's episode, Smart City Co-Creation, a topic I've covered before, but one that we can focus on more so during 2025 as part of Initiative 2025. The Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program is named for three things. Cafe Centro in the Bay Area was where startups start, spelled with two F's. Cafe Centro was where sites like Twitter, for better or worse, got their start. Jack Dorsey sitting with his laptop, hacking away on Twitter, met some people, showed his idea, and the rest is a very dark history. I can't say I'm a fan of Jack Dorsey, but Cafe Centro, very much so. I was there a few times. Not. I didn't live in San Francisco, so I visited there a few times. It was very, very simple, very cool in the South Park area of San Francisco, very near the AT&T ballpark, which is now the Oracle ballpark. I recently checked that out. I can't say that I've kept up with the building names in the Bay Area. Genius is for the genius lunches that we used to have in the Downtown Project days. I was never a Downtown Project person directly. I was more of a spectator, but we used to have a lunch now and then. Random people would show up. I don't know if I attended each one or if some of them. Who knows? It wasn't that structured. It was just more of a catching up on who's doing what's going on, etc. And of course, the word genius is what it is. Impresarios are people making stuff happen, spelled with two S's. It is not an incorrect, it's just an uncommon spelling. So Cafe Genius Impresarios is about startups starting with smart people communicating about cool people doing cool things. Something like that. I just strung that together just now, but that's the basic idea. Ideally, we'll have guests again someday. Lots and lots of audio essays between the most recent guest, which was in the double-digit episodes, I think 10 or 11 or something. So in the meantime, it's big plans, big talk. We'll see what happens. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains show notes and some links. There's only two links, two self-promotion links and two episode links for today's episode. I'll read the summary real quick. We'll go through the links and we'll get started. The sooner we get started, the sooner you get back to working on your startup. The summary of today's episode. We haven't talked a lot about co-creation recently, or maybe at all. I think recently. I think I've talked about it. We haven't talked a lot about co-creation, which is the inclusion of the users or your customers of something, whatever it is, in the design process so that what we are designing actually works for the people who are going to make use of it. I liken it to the example I always give is, have you ever walked into the kitchen when somebody's preparing something and they say, here, taste this. It's not done yet, but you're going to say, oh, it's too much or not enough or something along those lines. And then they can say, yeah, that's what I thought or something. So they're basically asking you who are about to eat or consume the outcome of this cooking adventure to offer your feedback during the process. And it might not even be cooking yet. It might be ingredients. This is something like co-creation. With 40 million visitors to the greater Vegas area each year, we have a great potential to engage real people with real innovation to make our smart city smarter. So that is to say, when we are thinking through our next innovation extravaganza, you can actually ask people who are visiting here, hey, does this work? The innovation in the fun economy is probably the safest bet when it comes to engaging visitors. So if anything you're building or making or conceiving of, whether it's a restaurant or a food truck or a retail establishment, or maybe a bookstore or a clothing store, a entertainment venue, an arcade, the list goes on. Not to mention software or hardware companies. If you're delving into the latest craze in AI, if you're, for whatever reason, building something on a blockchain, Web3 focus, maybe you're walking around with an Oculus or maybe the discontinued Apple Vision headset. I don't know if you're running into anything, but any of those things If you're working in a space where you can engage with our 40 million visitors, you might be able to get some feedback from them, and they'll tell you, hey, this is not as great as you think it is. Or maybe they'll reaffirm your commitment in many times over to convince you you're on the right track. These are all useful and possibly invaluable inputs that are passing through the greater Vegas area each year if you can engage them, if they have some way of discovering you. So, pardon me, the links for today's episode, the usual shameless self-promotion for your host, that's me, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com/DanHugo, that's ko-fi.com/DanHugo. Buymeacoffee.com allows local hosting, I guess, of audio and video, which Ko-fi Coffee does not. So I do post a Monday morning-ish, but it's usually earlier in the day than this episode, called Buy Me an Update, hosted on Buy Me a Coffee. So if you visit the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo page, right at the top, there's a link. There's a link to the posts section, or if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, it's kind of annoying that they don't make it a little bit easier for you to find this stuff. But in the posts section, I create an audio post every Monday. Buy Me an Update. It's an episode. It's a micro episode, under 5 minutes. What the episodes from the previous week were about. Anything coming up next week. That's all. You can check it out if you want. Under 5 minutes. And then Ko-fi.com does not support the same idea. So I usually post something more text-oriented there. So I'm trying to use these platforms more to provide updates and other useful information outside of the audio programming. Pardon me. And of course, I forgot to say this, there's no obligation to spend any money. You are welcome to. Any proceeds do go towards coffee accessories. On the buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo profile page, not only are there links to my audio programs, but to other GitHub projects, other things that I'm working on. There's a little bit of bio information on there as well. And then some of my favorite coffee beans. So those are where I spend my money, or yours if you want. LVCVA research link. The Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority provides demographic information about visitors to the greater Vegas area. That's where I get that 40 million visitor number. The data is not completely opaque, so you could add up numbers and see where they're coming from. So the research tab of their website offers a certain amount of information about where people are coming from, the reason they're visiting, and so on. So there's a wealth of information there. You just have to trust that it's accurate. I have no idea if they correlate with specific alternative data sources for cross-referencing. So that would be something to think about for the thing we're talking about today. And then co-creation, if you're not familiar, I have the Wikipedia page for it, a great place to begin learning about co-creation. If you're actually interested in it, you should continue down a path away from Wikipedia to some actual best practices and actual example implementations of this. The cooking example I gave is one, but then you can break co-creation down into where in the design process co-creation takes place, how people who are contributing can actually contribute something back, whether it's an opinion or an actual, like open source software is a co-creation effort in many cases. Here you're enabling people to actually contribute to the design, to the implementation, really. So your co-creation effort can take many forms and where in the process it takes place. But at the end of the day, co-creation involves engaging with your end users or customers or the people that are going to depend on what you're working on, you or your company or whomever, and then enabling them in some way to provide useful feedback so that you can continue to improve either during a design phase or during a version 2 design refinement stage, or however you can take the feedback, but to enable people to actually say, hey, this would work better if, or this didn't work, or this information could be more helpful if, and the list goes on, of course. So to enable that with 40 million people from all over the world, maybe, hey, check that demographic data out. You'll find out. 40 million people every year coming through the greater Vegas area is an opportunity to show a version of what you're working on, perhaps. Hey, here's a tool to get around Vegas. Here's a tool to discover the best breakfast places, etc. And then get actual feedback. Like, was this useful? Is a good start, but we can do better. And we have such a wealth of opportunity. Is that a good use of that? We have an abundance of visitors. We have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to the possibility of co-creation with real people who want to come to Vegas. And if we can make the so-called smart city of Las Vegas smarter by listening to people and taking what they say as part of our design process, well, who doesn't win in that case? So let's get this party started. The fire hose. I was at a comedy show recently. The headliner had posed. She's an up-and-coming comic, so you may or may not have heard of her. She had posed in social media prior, which is how I knew she was going to be at the club. Her name's Tina Frimmel, and she was at Wise Guys in the Arts District. I only knew that because I was following her on Instagram, and I hate Instagram. In Las Vegas has an Instagram account for some exploration, but so I follow her from there. But the key is this is a talented comedian who you probably would never have heard of if it wasn't for just stumbling upon YouTube. Well, maybe you saw her on The Tonight Show. Anyway, I digress. Whether anyone, she asked on social media, on Instagram, whether anyone had a suggestion for a great breakfast spot here in Vegas, because she would be heading down to Tucson. So her next show is the next evening. So a brief respite in the morning. And I saw that and I said, there are tons of good breakfast places here. And I spoke to her briefly after the show before she headed out, because she had some traveling to do on tour. I can only imagine how fun that is. And I suggested to her that there were too many good places and no practical way to locate the sort of place she might want to check out, because who knows? Special food needs, not special, but maybe a particular leaning, pancakes, eggs, bagels, English breakfast, Thai breakfast. Who knows? Who knows? It's a pretty broad question with so many potential answers here in Vegas. So where do you even begin? And then how do you make that suggestion? Do you check out an Instagram video, which are hard to link to? And the list goes on. So there's a number of challenges and so many choices, and embarrassment of riches. So the suggesting of a place is a hard problem. Capital H, capital P, hard problem. How do you tell people what's fun to do in Vegas? That's a big question with a lot of answers. We have a lot of stuff going on in Vegas. With 40 million annual visitors, that stands to reason. They can't all be walking up and down on the Strip. So how do they decide what they want to enjoy while here? The Las Vegas Convention, the LVCVA, pays content creators to create content on social media daily about all sorts of things. Good luck finding what breakfast spot you want to check out. With so many creators, there's so much content. There's so many videos, and there could be longer form YouTube, but it's shorts, TikTok videos, Instagram Reels, on all sorts of things. On all, whether it's food or drink or the pools or the how to do this for under that amount of money, or what to do in Vegas for the weekend or during the week, or a particular event that's going on like F1. I was going to say an embarrassment of riches again, but it's a lot of noise, because you are often being presented these things as you're scrolling through your Instagram feed. So you happen upon whatever the algorithm shows you, and the post that you're seeing may or may not be recent. It may be from a week ago, maybe from this morning, it may be from 10 minutes ago. The algorithm is deciding because it's got a different motive than you. It wants to keep you scrolling, keep you tapping on things, monetize. In the current national news, the news climate that we find ourselves in, we are hearing the term flood the zone a bit. Steve Bannon has said this a few times during interviews, and everyone's latched onto it because it's got a ring to it, I suppose. Flood the zone, flood the zone. I heard someone say they're doing something that is called what is known as flooding the zone. And I was like, well, is it really known as that, or is it because it's being... Anyway, it's a method to keep people confused with too much happening every day to properly digest and react. So If you're going to do something dubious or nefarious or worse, if you just keep the news cycle cranking away on everything all the time, then people who might be worried about the outcome of some of the things are getting deluged by all of the things. And as it is, people don't have time to keep track of political news. Only political people really do. Something similar can be found here in the greater Vegas area with stuff happening daily. There's always something going on in Vegas. There's, I haven't checked this explicitly, but there's probably a trade show or a convention or some sort of vertical topic centric gathering of some sort almost every week. For example, not to mention little festivals or gatherings or local events, a food truck event, or First Friday obviously happens on pretty much the first Friday of every month. So I guess that would be, is that today? Yeah, today, for example, in Vegas. If you are in Vegas and you're in the Arts District, you can check out First Friday. Did you know that? How would you? There's stuff happening daily. Some of it's good, entertaining, fun, delicious, and so on. But the stuff that makes the daily media outlets is usually the bad stuff. So crime, if there was crime at First Friday, that would make the news. Professional sports, especially sports stadium drama, racetrack construction drama, and then deconstruction drama that follows and the lawsuits and so on. There's more crime, the occasional uplifting story here and there, and then some more crime. These are the things we see daily in our local media, while the tourist aiming sites, the sites that are focused on people visiting, I guess Vegas.com, there's the Vegas Near Me application for your mobile device. There are some other, there are plenty. And of course, all the content on social media is aimed more at tourists than locals. It's not, it doesn't say, hey, if you're a local, don't look at this, but definitely geared at people in for the weekend or for a few days. The latest this, check out that spot, etc. So you're basically hit with a deluge of events and promotions that are offered as a collection of everything, a fire hose. So good luck. So my own effort, I have mentioned this previously, the in Las Vegas startup idea I am pursuing, which will make use of an open source initiative from the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, which I'm the managing director of, and open protocols and standards to build, my first typo that I've identified, not built, build. To build a platform that could also be used in other places, other geographical places. That platform will work anywhere according to the plan, at least. So the in Las Vegas deployment will obviously be a part of a Vegas focus on making a smarter smart city. But the underlying platform, I hate to even make the WordPress comparison, but if somebody deploys a WordPress website in Las Vegas, it's not because WordPress is Las Vegas centric. So if we build this purpose-built platform for city, like geographical region oriented information sharing, making use of modern technologies, and we deploy it as a Vegas example, the plan will have worked, hopefully. So there is no magic. Well, maybe a little bit. There are plenty of open and existing standards and methodologies that we can take advantage of. We can include some AI, with some classification and large language model use, some generative whatever. That if we make AI the star of the show, then we seem to have lost the narrative. But if we can make, especially for classification, for aiding in search in a transparent way, I'm okay with that. But if you just start reading AI generated descriptions of things, and if everything becomes I'm too lazy to write, I'll just have my ChatGPT or Devin or whatever tool you're using make my content for me, then people will notice that. So we can do the automated language translation, which has been a thing for a couple of decades now. And we can make sure that we're using ARIA compliance. So that's the Web Accessibility Initiative, and then ARIA stands for something else, which I never remember. So why ARIA? Let's just say that accessibility for those with vision impairments or hearing issues or other accessibility concerns, there's an entire standards body and standards approach to enable, without having to start from scratch, exposure of what you're working on to people with those additional requirements so that they can actually participate in what you're doing. I continue every week when I create my various pieces of content, I continue to be kind of frustrated because transcription, for example, on Spotify is not offered as a standard. I think it's an additional feature only if you enable advertising, I think. So moving over to or adding on a YouTube publication channel for all of these shows. I think they do translation. I don't know if it's for podcasts or for only for video. There are AI tools. So maybe enabling an AI-based transcription tool linked to each episode so that someone that could not hear my wisdom directly could transcribe on a per episode basis, and that would it would do two things. One, it would enable a best in class tool usage at the time, and two, it would shift the like if somebody's not interested in every single episode I've produced of all of my programs, then we don't have to spend the time and possibly money for something that nobody wants. So if it's more of an on-demand solution, that would work better. And we can do the same for a information sharing platform that aims to share information to more than just the sighted and perfectly hearing public, for example. So there's 40 million people visiting. There's going to be a variety of people with maybe color blindness or maybe the inability to see certain contrast levels. And this is all covered in Why Aria. So color contrast, font face size. There's a particular font typeface font that is, well, there's several that are designed for those with dyslexia or with difficulty basically tracking the shapes and the way the shapes are rendered and so on. The translation stuff, the transcription stuff for those with hearing impairments has come a tremendous way. So it's a question of making it work in a usable way that is not cost prohibitive to publishers. So essentially enabling people visiting Vegas to participate regardless, and then of course language translation. So if you don't speak English or Spanish, which are the two census data driven language choices for Southern Nevada, you might be out of luck, but we do have 40 million people visiting and not all of them speak English and or Spanish. So making use of modern tools to help people that speak other or read other languages, and then accounting for those who speak or read other languages who cannot necessarily see or hear, sort of the top tier of accessible content. Because the goal, after all, is to communicate with people visiting from all over. The old ways are the old ways. Launching a WordPress website with a couple of plugins, a quick design with a hero image at the top and a logo and posting content on Facebook or X or other platforms that require a login or motivated to monetize views, not inform visitors to a locality, and relying on algorithms to show us stuff we haven't already found can lead us in directions away from the possibilities we would then miss out on. So we have poor starting points for those who do try to self-publish. WordPress still powers a lot of websites, but it's not great, aside from the political drama of the company itself, Automatic. Facebook and X and other platforms, aside from their dubious politics, however you stand on that, just the fact that they are these old platforms that rely heavily on algorithmic readjustment of presentation order and so on, you're only finding what you're being shown, unless you search, and then your search results are what you are being shown. Relying on algorithms to show us the stuff we haven't already found means that we are essentially, they call it doom scrolling. You're just going to accept what's given to you. Oh, the For You page or the recommended video page or whatever you're looking at. Minimally viable. Good enough. But you may be missing out on the stuff that you actually want to find. So the idea is to begin here in our smart city, to begin some novel experiments in the ways of information sharing and discovery, and get feedback from people visiting and from people who live here to find out what works, what doesn't, and what we could do about it to improve it, right? So the idea is for people to move here, to visit here. They don't have to move here. When people visit here in the greater Vegas area, to have them say, oh, it was easy to find what I was looking for. It was easy to have a good time because I wasn't spending my time trying to figure out what I was trying to do. I was just spending the time doing it, What we often end up with, though, and I see it all the time here, is I have a website and people can visit it. Okay, well, how are they going to find it? I posted it on LinkedIn. Okay, people visiting the greater Vegas area, probably most of them not checking out LinkedIn. How did you build your website? Oh, I built it's WordPress with a couple of plugins. Okay. Does it do what you wanted it to do? Well, the plugins don't work exactly the way I want to. Well, can you make an experience for your users that works and it works well? Well, it works good enough. Would you listen to your visitors and users that are coming to Greater Vegas if they said it would be better if they don't really have the facilities for that? This is uncommon, unfortunately. And as it happens, I did some of this in my while I was employed at the chip company in Oregon that's going through some financial difficulties right now. What is it called? Intel, I think. To go out into the world and speak and interact with people using your products and say which parts don't work, which parts are confusing, which parts could we do better, and to actually get feedback. So discovery is probably the first thing, the low-hanging fruit. Someone visiting the greater Vegas area, or even those of us who live here, finding events, new restaurants, existing restaurants, same with bars, coffee shops, retail outlets, anything, requires two key things. So, and again, finding events are in that list. So if you're looking for a particular event, like I'm trying to find people who play video games while drinking Slurpees. That's a 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven used to have video games in their stores. So you could go buy a Slurpee and play Galaga or Space Invaders for hours. I digress. So you need to know two things. I need to know what I am looking for. So if we take our breakfast example, I need to know that I'm looking for a restaurant, coffee shop, or something similar with a great breakfast, maybe something traditional, maybe something I've never tried before. I may not necessarily know what I don't know. So what if I'm presented with something, I mentioned Thai breakfast earlier. Oh, a Thai breakfast spot. I've never tried Thai breakfast. Let me check that out. And then you say, oh, that does look interesting. There's some rice and eggs. Okay, these are things that are familiar to me. It's not too outlandish, so maybe you visit a Thai restaurant that has Thai breakfast. Great. Would that have been something you were looking for? Probably not. Is it something that would have been super popular and so it would have showed up algorithmically? Who knows? Because the algorithm doesn't know you're looking for a breakfast spot. So yeah, an opportunity to find what you're looking for when you know what you're looking for. And then the second, I need to know where to look. So am I doing a Google search? Am I looking on Yelp? Recently, and you can do that with breakfast spots, have at it. Good luck. The results will be all over the place. Yelp is actually not so bad if you're looking in a particular location. Like I need to find a place, like the best bagels in this 2 square mile region. That can do okay. So these tools, and hey, there are tools. Sometimes tools do different things better or worse. So not everything is a Google hammer. Or not everything you need to accomplish requires a Google hammer. So recently I was looking for any bakery or any sandwich shop or anywhere in the greater Vegas area that offers Dutch Crunch bread. I would like to buy Dutch Crunch bread, probably like a baguette style, like a 2 foot long or 3 foot long, and cut it and as a sandwich bread, right? Make a sandwich of some sort. If you've never tried Dutch Crunch, it's delightful. There are no useful results. There's maybe a sandwich shop. It might have been Ike's. It wasn't completely clear, which ones might have it. Their websites don't make it totally clear that they offer sandwiches on Dutch Crunch. So there's mentions of it, but it's very vague. Despite many hits for Dutch Crunch, aside from Ike's, in the search results page on Google and many locations listed on Yelp, when you actually dive into them, they don't seem to have Dutch Crunch bread. So the results pages for both Google and Yelp for this particular search in this particular region were not useful. And in fact, I kind of felt taken advantage of. I'm like, where do I get that time back? I just got a whole bunch of results that were meaningless. So if your search is generic enough, and if the tools you're using are broad enough, there's a chance you may find something interesting. But let us remember, the greater Vegas area is essentially a showcase of interesting, because there are so many people passing through, so many opportunities to impress newcomers, if they can find these places. So there are 2.4, say, almost 2.5 million people in Clark County. Not all of the people in Clark County are going to walk down your street or be in your neighborhood or find your location. they may come across a mention in a YouTube short or in a Instagram or a TikTok, whatever. So they might say, "Oh, look at that! There's a new bakery. Oh, they do cool donuts and pizza. It's in the Southwest. Okay, when am I going to be down there? Okay, maybe I'll shoot down there. Okay, great. Now, if I'm visiting Las Vegas, I'm probably not going to know to even follow the people on Instagram that are showing these things. The algorithm might show this, but my entire history of using Instagram for somebody visiting is somebody who lives in a different place. So now you're in the greater Vegas area. You may or may not find something interesting in the 2 days that you're here. So the comedian, for example, she would not have been following any of the people who are knowledgeable content creators who are checking out the latest breakfast spots. So therefore, it's kind of an undoing if you think you're going to find information this way. You might. The algorithm might impress, but unfortunately, for better or worse, the general population relies heavily on that algorithmic discovery. It's driven by profit motive, of course, so to stumble upon a content creator who has posted something noteworthy on TikTok or Shorts or Reels or whatever, maybe on X or Blue Sky even, or Facebook or wherever, Yelp, or who knows where else. Could be any of the, where are people posting these things? I mean, I've mentioned the well-known ones. Are people posting elsewhere? I don't even know. That might be found as part of a recommendation engine's offering, perhaps, and they might get close in intersecting what you think you might be looking for and what they have to show you through these algorithms, right? So you might randomly get a list of cool breakfast spots that people have created Instagram reels about in the greater Vegas area, even though you're visiting from the East Coast, right? You might get lucky, or you might get a subset. Like, oh, there was a really good spot, but the spot that would have fit you, what you're looking for, never got shown for whatever reason, right? So you didn't have the opportunity to broaden your search. The algorithm is showing you what it thinks you might find interesting. If you happen to get geographically relevant suggestions in your Instagram feed or whatever, great. So if there's that intersection, you win. You might get something. But you or any visitor sees what they are shown. The algorithm shows you what it's going to show you, not necessarily what they or you are looking for. So you might get lucky, you might not. So I say let's innovate. That's the idea with the in Las Vegas platform, or the in Las Vegas deployment of the platform we're working on. Decentralization is the name of the game lately. And no, I'm not speaking of Blue Sky, although you're welcome to use it. I have an account on Blue Sky. Not impressed. Mostly not impressed with the people using it, but also not impressed with the way they're implementing the platform. And the protocol is dubious. AT Proto, not necessarily perfect. What is? It's a nice platform for Twitter refugees, but what about platforms that exist today and make use of Federation protocols in a real decentralized way on which we can build new ideas? That sounds like innovation to me. Look for purpose-built tools, making use of activity streams and activity pub, not to mention the legacy of RSS and Atom, and a lot of map data, timelines that are actual timelines, not the news feed on Facebook. And a timeline should have real dates and indicate relations so that we can find out an order of events and so on. Not so relevant to finding a breakfast spot, but figuring out the relationship in time of, say, construction for a F1 racetrack, or construction delays and road diversions in relation to everything in Las Vegas. So knowing when things are coming up, we have calendars, we have timeline displays, we have calendar displays. We have ways of doing this that have been around for decades, yet we're relying on Instagram for news. It's insanity. So integration with external websites, information sources, and things, the Internet of Things. So if we can start connecting things, sensor fusion, information source fusion, and so on, we don't rely on silos of information, but we can actually share them. And that's one of the Federation notions, is that you can subscribe to things on other platforms using the activity pub protocol to share activity stream data. We'll talk about that more in the future. Decentralized means we don't have to rely on one central location that is the keeper of truth, including your own username or your account. Have you ever gone to Blue Sky just started, I got to get my username so that people can find me? Yeah. centralized, but we can look around where we want online and find information and details that may be interlinked with other locations on the web, on different platforms, and so on. We might want to share what we find in useful ways to interested people who can do so without concern for which side of a platform battle they are on, Blue Sky versus Twitter, for example. Where am I? So we can do some of this today, sort of, but we can also make use of modernity and build on it, which is what we are doing. So you can sign up on a Mastodon server. There are a couple thousand at this point, which, by the way, when people say, oh, people on Mastodon, which one? I always say that's like saying people who use email. Is it people using AOL or Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or Outlook or their own website or that? So to make a broad generalization is a little bit tricky. Mastodon is by design distributed across many, many servers, many, many locations, many people, many little communities forming around them, many types of topics and focus and so on. There is a Mastodon.Vegas presence that will launch one of these days. It's not a high priority at the moment, but maybe it should be. So the Vegas locality can be a part of the Fediverse, as they call it, and we can make use of these decentralized platform protocols to share information far and wide without saying, well, you must sign up with Instagram or X or Blue Sky, or you must know who you're going to follow, et cetera, et cetera. So we can do some of this today, though, like I said, but the more interesting thing, I think, is building on these to do interesting and creative things. And if you follow the what's called the Activity Pub protocol to share this information, someone, even on Threads, I'm not exactly sure how much Instagram Threads has implemented of the Activity Pub protocol and scheme, but you should be able to follow, well, you should be able to follow people that are publishing other Activity Pub enabled sources, right? So I'm publishing a blog post or a photo or something. You should be able to see it on your Threads account if you're following them. If you're not using Threads, but you're using something that's a better implementation of Activity Pub and activity streams, like Mastodon or Lemmy or Pixel, is it Pixel Pub? No, Pixel Pub? Pixelfed, I think that's what it is. It's kind of an Instagram-like thing. And there are more. There are many platforms out there. So you can take something interesting and you can interconnect it so that it interoperates with other platforms. Now you can interact with people on other platforms following the decentralized federated Activity Pub protocol. And now you can share information and communicate without requiring people to jump through hoops or sign up for things they don't want to sign up for. That's a dramatic oversimplification. So building on existing technologies and protocols, sometimes on top of existing platforms or platform building blocks, we have room to innovate without sticking too closely to the script, so to speak. This is one problem with a WordPress starting point. As an example, and WordPress still does power some huge percentage of the internet. Whether they are current, active, useful, and valuable websites is a question I don't really care to explore, but merely throwing up a WordPress site like, oh, just build a WordPress site. You can do it in 10 minutes. Yeah, but then you get 10 minutes worth of value, right? It's not innovation. It's an integration outcome, and it's you basically say, well, what plugins already exist? So if you're not going to roll up your sleeves and start writing some code to build something on top of this WordPress platform that does what you want it to do, you end up doing what WordPress plugins enable you to do, and that might be a subset or a less than user experience. So we can build what we need and want and integrate with what works already. Like we could build on top of Mastodon or Pixelfed. I think that's what it is. Or we can build on top of an Activity Pub reference platform and do something unique or weird, right? What if Google Maps had a Activity Pub component so you could follow a location? Think about that, because I have. So we don't have to own. So we can take full. We can take full advantage of the open source world, open source tools, open source platforms, open standards, protocols to share information. We are not constrained necessarily by what WordPress has enabled and what the WordPress plugin marketplace has decided to implement poorly sometimes. We don't have to own content and control who finds what. We can leave that to the people using the platform to make it work for them. So in other words, I personally don't feel it's valuable to have yet another place to have to post things. So one of the nice things about something like ActivityPub, you update your website or whatever you're publishing from, and other platforms receive a notification of that, sort of like RSS feeds, and they can say, oh, let me think of something. Bad Owl Coffee Shop posted they have a new bean for the month, right? That information should not be tucked away in an Instagram post that some percentage of population will see. It should be visible for anyone who's interested in the latest goings on of coffee shops, or maybe they're interested in the latest goings on of coffee shops in downtown Las Vegas, or in Henderson, or in the West Side in Summerlin, or the historic West Side. So you should be able to look at things in the ways that you want, and then receive notifications of them from the source, not from somebody resharing something on Facebook or that you didn't even know that they were sharing it. So kind of opening up the floodgates, making use of existing technologies. These things have all been around for decades, just like me. So, by the way, as far as startups and entrepreneurs in the greater Vegas area, I have mentioned this a few times through many, many episodes, that the so-called startup scene and the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem both need several upgrades to make upgrades with an S. I don't publish my notes, but I still like them to be close. There are still many errors through the many episodes I've produced, but I try. They need several upgrades to make them truly viable. And what viable actually means is probably up for debate. That's one reason the next cohort of the Genius Roundtable is so important. Do we have startups today? Of course. Do we have entrepreneurs doing entrepreneurial things today? Yes, of course we do. Can we do better? Yes, yes, and yes. So some people think we have to be the next Silicon Valley, and I continue to say it at every turn. We don't need to be a Silicon Valley. We just need to be better Vegas, because Silicon Valley, what they're really thinking when they say that is we're going to have the next Google or the next Amazon will be founded here in Vegas, and we'll turn this place into a tech mecca. No, you will Amazon products. You will possibly destroy the fun economy by pricing people out, and that's happened somewhat in Austin and certainly in parts of Silicon Valley. The real Silicon Valley, never to be truly duplicated, which is probably a good thing because there's not everything about Silicon Valley is amazing. I was there from 1993 to 2013. Included two key components: an organic culture of innovation that developed over decades, and actually really like a century, a little bit longer. Mid to late 1800s was the beginning of the culture of innovation, and the realization that the general population was interested in innovation to some degree. Local media in the Silicon Valley area, especially after 1993, when that's when I moved there. That's weird. When the dot-com boom started, the local media, front page news about local innovation, local innovative companies, startups, and so on. And failures actually made the news because people were learning what was not working or what was going wrong. You could say people were making fun, but really knowing when things didn't go as planned or didn't work out is part of the education. And it's the thing that it's the part of a place that wants to be an innovation hub, that tells people that innovation is not always win, but it should always be learn. These things were important and they received attention accordingly. So having lived in Silicon Valley, I will say, yes, the goings on in the innovation space always made the news. I will even say that sometimes, much like here in Vegas, crime and goings on in the entertainment and real estate market will sort of deluge a consumer of the news. They don't hear about startups, the startup scene, so-called entrepreneurialism, and so on. So in the Silicon Valley area, you might hear more about entrepreneurial startups, big wins, companies shutting down, but you wouldn't hear so much about local news. Some things in Sunnyvale where I lived, for example, like people just didn't know because it didn't make the local news scene because for whatever reason, conspiracy. We can do something similar here though. if we stop believing that LinkedIn is the only way to engage these parts of the greater Vegas scene. I don't really like that word. It's kind of trendy, but if there are people in greater Vegas, so I mean the city of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Mesquite, maybe Pahrump, I don't know, Southern Nevada, how big is Vegas? If you ask anyone, they won't be able to give you an answer. If we stop believing that there's one central location, whether it's, virtual, like a TikTok or LinkedIn or whatever, is the only way to reach people. So if we assume that people are spread out, if we assume that things are going on, if we assume that there is a startup scene, but there's also other startup scenes of people with more closely linked interests, more geographical or local issue-based interests. So if there's only one startup scene and there's only one platform like LinkedIn to communicate with, you end up missing out on people who are not in those or making use of those for whatever reason. But if you make the information available in ways that they are interested in making use of, you can actually engage more people. So make fewer assumptions, make better use of existing methods and tools, and let the population pull what they want. Don't say, oh, go to LinkedIn and you have to be following this one page. No. Here's some information. If you want it, take it. Owning one's presence online is a start. Connecting your own presence, so your own website, your own something, to the greater internet is useful and not always the one way. And not always the one way is where the future is. That is to say, you got to be on LinkedIn. That's where everything's going on. Is that really where the future is? And like everybody must become a part of a particular platform and whatever weird decisions they make about how they're going to use your information and what sort of privacy policies and, oh, DEI, the wind is blowing the other way. Now we have to change. Like everybody's doing their own thing based on some other interest. If you own your own presence online, you have an opportunity to do what you want with what you want to do. That is, do I want to create video? Do I want to tell people what I'm working on as a business? Do I want to blog about flowers and cats? You can do whatever you want. And nobody can tell you, oh, you're not allowed to talk about that. Now, your audience may tell you, I don't want to consume your content or visit your website. And that's something you can deal with, but that's your decision and your content. You're not handing it over to some other platform. As well, you should be discoverable in the ways that you want to be. You shouldn't require people to sign up for LinkedIn or have an X account or whatever, unless you really want them to, and that's up to you. So more flexibility in how you present yourself and your business endeavors or your educational pathway or your research or your product, whatever it is. You should be able to decide what you put out there, and then making that discoverable should be something that the modern internet wants to do. Doing this makes your own presence resilient. It makes what you are trying to accomplish, whether it's a just funded multi-million-dollar startup venture or a new coffee shop or an independent bookkeeping business, or again, a blog about cats, visible. And it makes sure that you get to control that it's there. If your account gets closed or if a platform goes out of business or gets sold, you still have your stuff. And it makes discovery of what you are doing by people who are interested in what you are doing a little bit easier to start if we stop relying on Google and LinkedIn. Now, this doesn't mean that you prevent yourself from appearing in those places. What it does mean is that you create opportunities for people to find you in other places in ways that they want to try to find you. So are you in Google? Maybe. Are you the first response on the SERP, the search engine result page? Sometimes, maybe not always. But are you being found in using tools and methods that are commonly used by people in your interest area? That might be more useful. Now you're not letting Google create AI content from your website and then building a response for your potential visitor or customer with an AI-generated summary, right? Like, you could go to the cat blog of the person in Vegas, or we can just tell you what they wrote right here, and you don't have to bother patronizing their platform. So I think that's sort of the undoing. And LinkedIn, same deal. You only find out stuff if you're following the right person or if their recommendation engine makes a suggestion. I have seen cases where there's a perfectly interesting event going on, oriented towards entrepreneurialism, only advertised on Instagram. You go to the LinkedIn page for the entity that was driving and organizing this event. Nothing. So an incoherent, why is that? And nothing on their website, because they're only advertising in one place rather than starting at their home base, their website, their web presence on the internet, saying, let's make sure people are able to discover this event and find out more information. Then we'll place information that points back to us. We'll put links on X and Blue Sky or whatever. We'll post on LinkedIn, direct people to the authoritative source, which is ours. And so that's something that I think is very important. If you're relying on Google and LinkedIn, if you're relying here in Vegas on the Sun and the Review Journal and the local media like Channel 8 and Channel 3 and whatever, traditional television news outlets that publish online now. And if you're relying on meetup.com to make better connections and to have meetups that people actually show up to, if you're relying on those things to make a better Vegas, then we need to talk. So the future is making use of modernity. That's sort of how that works. And that is the entire goal that I hope to put on display within Las Vegas as the starting point. And so there you go. It sounds like a lot of hand waving, but there is a plan. I have found that if I go into too much detail, people get confused. So it's much more of a show, don't tell. So this is probably the last of the telling before I start doing some showing, if that makes sense. And that is where I will leave today's episode of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program for this February 7th, 2025. Smart City Co-Creation. All of this depends on people using the platform from faraway places and being able to provide feedback. And I hope that point didn't get lost in here, but by opening up a platform with the mindset that I started the program with, talking about how people need to be able to tell you what doesn't work. I gave a bunch of examples where, relying on LinkedIn or Instagram, you don't know that they don't work because you don't know that people aren't able to find you, or they're not discovering what they want to try to discover because they're not following the right person or for whatever reason. So involving the user, your customers, the people visiting the greater Vegas area is a key part, and that's what co-creation is all about. So that was sort of implied in some parts. So if you made it this far, thank you for that clarification, making it through. And that is where we'll leave today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. And consider being a guest on this program. We need other voices. Thank you.